What makes a sentence? Many students will correctly suggest that a sentence needs a subject and a verb. For example, my friend laughs. Often a subject is a noun, like friend, but the term subject can also refer to a noun phrase, which includes adjectives and other modifiers. For instance, my best friend in the whole wide world. We can add a lot of other parts of speech, but we still have just one subject here. We can also add to the verb. My best friend in the whole world laughs hysterically. Here we've added a simple adverb. The verb portion of the sentence, along with all of its modifiers and phrases, is often called the predicate, but you don't need to know that, it's just a bonus. We can add more to the verb or predicate as well. My best friend in the whole world laughs hysterically in her classroom after getting back her grades. Notice that these words we've added are just modifiers and phrases that don't change the basic structure of the sentence we started with. They can be added or removed and not upset anything. We still have a complete sentence with or without modifiers like adjectives, adverbs, and phrases. However, what happens when we add a different sort of word? Because my friend laughs. Is this still a sentence? We still have a subject and a verb, so what's wrong? The rule for what makes a sentence is too simple at just having a subject and a verb. A sentence also has to make a complete thought. Having a subject and a verb is important, but it isn't necessarily a sentence. A subject and verb unit is called a clause, and there are two kinds of clauses. Independent, meaning it stands on its own and makes a complete thought, and dependent, meaning it needs to be with an independent clause in order to be part of a sentence. This one word because destabilizes the entire clause and turns it from a sentence into a grammatical error we call a fragment. We'll talk about those some more in a few minutes. What is this little word? How does it have so much power in a sentence? It has power because it's a conjunction. Remember, a connecting word? Two of the main types of conjunctions are coordinating and subordinating. The first combines equal clauses, in other words, two independent clauses. But the second does not. Adding a coordinating conjunction doesn't do much to the structure of a clause, but adding a subordinating conjunction turns an independent clause into a dependent or subordinate one. Try out a few others. Since my friend laughs, whenever my friend laughs, although my friend laughs. They all require something more added to the sentence to make it a complete thought. One way to make it complete is to add an independent clause like, I smile in class. You can add a dependent clause after an independent clause, as in this example, and you don't need a comma between the clauses. You can also add a dependent clause before an independent clause. In this case, you do need a comma between the clauses because the subordinate clause at the beginning is considered an introductory element. So, to recap, sentences are made of words, and the words can be in groupings called clauses and phrases. A clause is a word group that contains a subject and a verb and can be subordinate or independent. A phrase is always a subordinate word group, in other words, not a sentence by itself, because it lacks a subject and a verb. It might have one but not the other, or neither one. There are many kinds of phrases such as prepositional, verbal, appositive, and absolute. If you're curious about how to identify these phrases and what they do, check out Chapter 48 of Rules for Writers. For now, we need to be able to identify what a complete sentence is.